Hi everyone, this is Arcadius and welcome back to Naval. Today we'll be reviewing the first German battleship, that being Nassau. But first, let's just take a look at the German battleship line in its whole form. So first we start off with Nassau, then we go to Kaiser, then we have the option of going to Koenig, but you don't have to research her if you don't want to. Then it goes to Bayern, and then we have the more modern-ish German battleships, kind of like how American and French battleships also have that break between older and newer battleships, where we have Gneisenau, Bismarck, H-39 or Friedrich de Gross, and then H-42 or Grosse Kurfürst. One main thing that you will find pretty prevalent for the entire German battleship line is amazing secondaries. The secondaries for these battleships are actually focused on the superstructure of enemy ships, not the hull. So they are a lot more effective at dealing damage, and they set fires like every 3 seconds, I swear, especially at the higher tiers. I mean, Grosse Kurfürst's base secondary range is 8 kilometers, and I have mine up out to almost 12 kilometers at this point. It's actually pretty ridiculous, but it's very fun as well. Add to that the armor for these battleships is a turtleback setup, which means that they are extremely hard to citadel. And it's not impossible to citadel them, it just is extremely difficult to. You have to find like a weird angle, and you have to do it that way. Also, German battleships have some of the most health in the game. For example, again, H-42 has 116,000 health points, and that's without any buffs. I don't know if it'll tell me. Yeah, I don't have. It doesn't tell me what my buffs bring it up to, but I think I'm close to like 130,000 health points for my top tier battleship here. The gun caliber is not always going to be the highest. You usually are about mid or low ranking with all the battleship calibers for each tier. You start off in Nassau with 11-inch guns, and you go to 12s, 12s, 15s, 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 16s, and then you either have a couple options. You have 16 and a halves, or you have 19s for the top tier, and that's in inches. So good secondaries, good armor. AA is questionable. You're never going to be the strongest one, and in fact, H-42 has, I think, the worst AA rating or DPS for um, a top tier battleship, and that's pretty prevalent. Though there are exceptions such as Bismarck and Gneisenau, and even Bayern and Kaiser. They actually have really good AA for their tiers. Another thing is that you may have a lot of health, but you take major chunk damage. You have a lot of broadside on your ships, and you're not very maneuverable, and you will take major damage. A couple of the ships have torpedoes, that being Gneisenau and Friedrich de Gross, similar to how Tirpitz and Scharnhorst have them, in a slightly different manner, I guess. Accuracy is going to be absolute trash. Get that in your head right now. You're going for as many shells as you can put downrange, not accurate shells downrange. There's something. Oh yeah, they're really bad with aircraft torpedoes. If you or pretty much just any kind of torpedoes at all, you want to stay away from that. Other than that though, these ships are amazing. They're good brawlers. You get in close. You use your secondaries to set fires. You use your main guns to do tons of damage. If you have them, you can use your torpedoes, and you have some AA to knock down aircraft, but you will need support regardless. And then I don't, you just take on anything you need to, and it's so much fun. Nassau itself is a pretty fun ship as well. So let's take a look at her and see what we have. First off, we have 35,400 health, 14% torpedo resistance, up to, was that 16 inches almost of armor? Yeah, It says a belt is 20, but I think that the belt measurements for the German battleships are all kind of messed up because you do have that turtleback, as you can see, and if you don't know what that means, it just means that the citadel for the ship is angled, so you can kind of see an angled part that goes up like this, and on this side it goes up like this. That means when shells come in, they have a higher chance of just bouncing instead of actually going into the ship itself. All right, so the armor on the ship may look pretty powerful, and it is actually pretty hard to citadel. Not impossible. It's Nassau might be the easiest one to citadel out of all of them, and she can also be uh, overmatched relatively easily with 12-inch guns, such as like Wyoming's or Dreadnoughts or pretty much any other ship at this tier because they all have 12-inch except her. Um, yeah, like I said, she has 11-inch guns, the smallest of any battleship in the game. However, you do kind of compensate that with also having the fastest rate of fire of any of the battleships at this tier as well. Your 11-inch guns are arranged in 6 double turrets, 1 fore, 1 aft, and 2 on each wing. Not the best layout, but they fixed this later on. Good shell velocity. Your damages are not going to be that strong. Another thing about German battleships, your HE piercing, so the amount of millimeters of armor your high explosive shells can go through, is always going to be the highest. For example, on Nassau, it's 70. And if you go to something like Wyoming, let's go to Wyoming. Your high explosive only goes through 50 millimeters of armor, and that's a 12-inch gun versus an 11-inch gun. So right off the bat, you can kind of see that she might be a good HE spammer. However, I always use armor piercing for my German battleships. I find that is easiest, and I leave my secondaries to set the fires. Also, your high caliber secondaries will be firing armor piercing while your smaller ones fire high explosive. So, for example, the casemates on Nassau will be firing armor piercing, while the smaller ones in the superstructure here, these ones will be firing high explosive. You also have a nice, quite a few secondaries in the rear here. It's always one thing about the Nassau's I've always liked, and you have a couple more up here. Gun range, 10.1 kilometers with a 4.0 secondary battery range. Not the best, honestly. And actually, Nassau's not, in my opinion, the best secondary brawler battleship at this tier. In my opinion, that's actually Dreadnought. If you haven't tangled with her secondaries, try it. You might be surprised at how much damage you can actually get with Dreadnought secondaries. Speed 20 knots on German battleships are kind of fast. They get faster after you hit Gneisenau. Gneisenau, I believe, is actually the fastest one at 32 knots. And then they all hover about 31 knots after that. But before that, you're not going to crack more than 25, I think. Let's see, what's Koenig's? Yeah, 24. So that's the highest you would go before them. But yeah, pretty good. A defense, since you are tier 3, you have the possibility of running into aircraft, something like Katordi or whatever like that. You're not going to be shooting them down at all. So, at least not at this tier. The ship is fun. Good secondaries, good rate of fire, good guns. Armor is not the best of this tier, but is useful, at least in ricocheting cruiser shells. And with that, let's toss into a game and see what we can do. Alright, and here we have ourselves a game. So you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 battleships and 3 cruisers. So no destroyers, which is actually not bad because for the lower tiers, the same rule applies for the secondaries, that they try and shoot for the superstructure of ships to do the most damage because that is where not a lot of armor is. But at these lower tiers, there's not a lot of superstructure on ships. So take something like Teniru, you don't have anything at all. So most of your secondaries will actually just go right over the top of the ships and splash behind them. And that's going to be true for pretty much Nassau, Kaiser, and König. After you hit Bayern, it's slightly better, and then after Gneisenau, Bismarck, and all that, you don't have a problem. It's just these lower tiers where you think that, oh, there's a small destroyer relatively close. I'll just let my secondaries deal with that and then keep going. No, you have to focus on it because your secondaries will just shoot right over the top and they'll also just miss 90% of the time. I do have health buffs and speed buffs applied at this time, so keep that in mind. Though speed buffs don't really help me. I'm still only going 21.4 knots. Alright, so gun rotation is pretty good. Let's see here. Gun angles are not the best, but it's also the very first one. So let's see. Shell arcs are okay. And immediately got a Citadel, actually. That was pretty good. The accuracy is always going to be questionable, but with Nassau you fire, 8 shells at a time? And at the ranges you're shooting at, you have a pretty good chance of nailing at least some shells. And so we almost have this tin roof down. I think I'm gonna leave her for someone else, like that St. Louis. Oh, our secondaries actually opened up. Yeah, let's see if we can take a chunk out of this St. Louis before it takes down Artillery. Tembrew. I'm not really sure how to say that ship name. It's always giving me trouble. Out of all the starting battleships, ooh, there's the secondaries. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, look at that. Some pretty good damage. Though St. Louis is also pretty high. As you can see though, the secondaries are still going right over the top of her. They're only barely hitting in some spots. That's alright, because we'll just sink her that way anyways. Going back to what I was saying, as a starting battleship, Nassau is not... well, might be the third strongest, I would say. First one would obviously be Wyoming. The second one would be Dreadnought. And then I would say Nassau. There's also Corbeil, she's not bad. Technically Invincible's at the same tier. As you can see, I'm matched with her. However, I don't have Invincible, but even if I did, I don't think she would be any better than this. Ooh, Citadel, awesome. Alright, so secondaries are still going to town. I don't have that many hits. Nassau's pretty low to the water, so they're still just going right over her for the most part. But as you can see, there's no kind of ricochet at all, and that was a pretty strong angle Nassau was at. You're just going to take almost full damage every time you're shot at by a battleship. I do have a little bit of a secondary buff, so that's why I'm shooting out to 4.5 kilometers. Ooh, detonation. Alright, that's new. Usually that only happens on dreadnoughts. But I'll take it. And we just kind of... yeah, she got a bunch of damage there. There's a lot of Nassaus in this game, actually, now that I realize it. But your rate of fire and shell velocity is going to be a major influential factor at this low tier. See, oh, you're still alive, surprisingly. There's my secondaries going off. Got a little bit more damage. Let's see if we can get some good chunk damage. Well, actually, no. Let's show them nose armor. So I still only have my 11-inch guns. Let's see if I can go through the nose. Yep, 4 pens and only 1 shatter. Not even a ricochet. Secondaries are going off again. Got a little bit more damage. There's the casemates. And now we have a fully broadsiding Invincible. Let's see if we can detonate her. Just kidding. That only happens in Jutland. Actually, I don't think I've ever detonated a British battle cruiser in this game. I've mm, I've been detonated in German British battleships, but not the battle cruisers themselves. Okay, so our secondaries are going to go off here. There they go. With such a big, tall, flat broadside, such as Invincible, it's going to be hard for our secondaries to actually miss, which is fine. Our main battery, 5 pens, 3 over pens. That still works. And there we have ourselves a game. So let's see how we did. $148,000 damage, 3 ships sunk, 87 shell hits, 2 citadels, 3 fires, 144 secondary hits for just over 3,000 base XP. Our armor piercing did 116,000 damage, fires did less than 5,000, and then secondary battery did 27,000 damage. 83 HE shells for 12,000, and then 61 armor piercing for 15,000 damage. So you get a good mix of damage at this tier for your secondaries. As you can see, she is a really, really powerful ship. However, she is also a very squishy ship. She takes damage from any kind of angle from battleship shells, and she can't take a lot of it because she doesn't have that much health. Add to that you are relatively slow, and you don't fare well at all against torpedoes. And you have a very kind of fragile hull, but you also have a lot of guns and maneuverability to help you with that. Like I said, she's actually a really, really fun ship. I do still take her out once in a while. But most of the time she just sits in port because I like other high tier ships. At this time, I will wrap up today's video. If you liked the video, make sure you like and subscribe for further content. And tomorrow we will be going over the next German battleship, that being Kaiser, or in my opinion, one of the worst battleships in the game. But we'll go through that tomorrow. So again, thank you for watching and take care.